السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, we will continue our discussion on the 25th word, the first light, first ray, and I believe this is the 5th point that we are on right now. And just as a reminder of what the 5th point is about, we are talking about the miraculousness of the Quran. The 4th point I remember was about the eloquence of the Quran. And in this 5th point, we are now going over the excellence in its manner of exposition. So we're talking about the rhetoric, how concise it is, in that conciseness, how powerful it is, how much meaning maybe, or how shocking maybe like a phrasing is. And we've been going over examples like this. Or I think there's a paragraph worth reading again, just to get the mindset. So the 5th point, this is the excellence in its manner of exposition. That is to say, the superiority, conciseness, and grandeur. Just as there's eloquence in the word order, the wording, and the meaning, and a uniqueness in its style, so in its manner of exposition, there is a superiority and excellence. In the way it is written, there is a superiority and excellence. Indeed, all the categories and levels of speech and address, like encouragement and deterring, praise and censure, demonstration and guidance, explanation and silencing and argument, are at the highest degree in the Quran's exposition. And, exposition, comprehensive description of the explanation of an idea or theory. I think in this sense, it's also about just, the conciseness, like here, the conciseness in how it's written, the rhetoric that is used. For example, I think last week we had a very good example for this in the verse 52:39, or has he only daughters and you have sons? I remember last week when we were going over this, I felt this was a very powerful verse. I felt that a lot of meaning was conveyed in this very short phrase. Actually, in these verses we're going over right now, we can see that all of them are starting with or, and they're ending with questions. Like or do they say a poet, let us wait and see what time will do, or are they but a people transgressing all bounds? It's questioning. You're being questioned. You're being challenged. These very short sentences that are being asked to you, they're in like a question format. They're challenging you. They're questioning you. It's a very powerful, it's a very powerful rhetoric, just in language, to be asking someone a rhetorical question that it makes them think, it makes them ponder, it makes them reflect on like what they truly believe in, because you're not actually telling them to believe in something, maybe like outright, you're not saying the answer, but you're saying, is this what you believe? Do you believe that you are the manager of affairs? The verses are asking me. Or do I believe that I have sons, but this absolute creator, he has daughters? Do I believe that there's such a separation between us? And inshallah, we will again continue in the same line of thought this week. So there are a few more verses from Surah Tur, and then I think it ends here. So we will be covering the rest of the surah before we move on. So let me first read it, inshallah, and then we can also look at the context in the Quran and then dive into it deeper. Or is it that you ask for a reward so that they are burdened with a load of debt? And here, let me, wait, which one was this? 40. The different translation is, or are you, a prophet, asking them for a reward for the message? So I don't like this translation, actually. I remembered this. Okay. So, or do you ask of them a payment so they are by debt burdened down? أم تسألهم أجرا فهم من مغرم مثقلون. Or like the rebellious, overweening worshippers of this world, who have made a habit of greed and miserliness, do they find what you propose burdensome, so that they flee from you? Do they not know that you seek your wage and recompense from God alone? Is it a burden to give to their own poor one 40th of the property given to them by God Almighty, or a part of it, and as a consequence both receive plenty, and be saved from the envy and curses of the poor? Do they consider the command to give zakat burdensome, and therefore hold back from Islam? Their denials have no importance, and what they deserve is a slap, not an answer. Or is it that the unseen is in their hands and they write it down? Or have they knowledge of the unseen so they write it down? أَمْ عِنْدَهُمُ الْغَيْبُ فَهُمْ يَكْتُبُونَ. Do they have the unseen? Or have they the unseen so they write it down? Or like Buddhists who claim to be familiar with the unseen, or the pseudo-intellectuals who imagine their conjectures about its affairs to be certain, does what you said about the unseen not appeal to them? That means they imagine that the world of the unseen, which is disclosed to no one apart from the divine messengers who receive revelation, and which no one has the ability to enter, is present and laid open before them, and that they obtain from it and write it down. So do not be disheartened by the lies of these arrogant braggarts who have overstepped their mark to an infinite degree. For in a short while your truths will completely overturn their imaginings. And then I'll also read this verse. Or do they intend a plot against you? But those who defy God are themselves involved in a plot. Or do they intend a plan? But those who disbelieve, they are the object of a plan. أَمْ يُرِيدُونَ كَيْدًا فَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا هُمُ الْمَكِيدُونَ. Or like two-faced dissemblers and cunning atheists whose natures are corrupted and consciousness rotted. Do they want to deceive the people and turn them away from the guidance which they cannot obtain? To trick them, and so call you either a soothsayer or possessed or a sorcerer? Do they want to make others believe what they do not believe themselves? Don't think of these insidious charlatans as human beings. Don't be saddened at their wiles and denials and lose heart. Rather, increase your efforts, for they only deceive their own souls and harm themselves, and their successes in evil are temporary. It is a divine stratagem, drawing them to perdition by degrees. Okay, so inshallah we can now go through the verses and try to understand what they mean. So I'll be honest when I say that this 25th word and these discussions that we've been having where we are examining the miraculousness of the Quran, these haven't been easy discussions. Like they haven't been easy because it's hard to grasp some of the things that Nursi is saying here, or it's hard to, I see what Nursi is saying. I see the conclusions he is presenting, but it's hard to feel the emotional aspect of it, or to truly feel the power of the verses as he is explaining them. Like he says, there's so much power in a verse, but for me, it's not easy for me to also feel that power that he is saying is within that verse. So, all your help and whatever points of views that you can provide or help in trying to see that miraculousness in these verses and try to see that conciseness and the grandeur of its exposition. It would all be very helpful, inshallah. Together we will try to sit down before these verses and make some sense of it. If there's anything that I realized in these discussions, it's the more you sit in front of these verses of the Quran, the more I guess you're asking by your physical being, by sitting down and trying to understand them, especially in a group. Then the more the light of it opens up to you, and the more it makes sense. So inshallah, we'll also be able to like have that kind of discussion and understand these verses. So this was an interesting verse, or is it that you ask for a reward so that they are burdened with a load of debt? So in this one, it doesn't add Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. In here, in other translations, it does add that. So we could interpret it in either way. We can interpret it for ourselves first and foremost as well. But here we see how Nursi is explaining it. It's talking about people. It's talking about the rebellious, overweening worshippers of this world who have made a habit of greed and miserliness. Do they find what you propose burdensome so that they flee from you? Do they not know that you seek your wage and recompense from God alone? So Nursi is also, in some sense, and I see there's a pattern in the way he's explained these verses. Generally, he approaches it from the more like basic level, where first you can understand it as if this verse is speaking to, let's say, the Prophet, or in a further one, and then later he will also talk about zakat here. A very physical recompense or a very physical payment is zakat. So he's making examples of these very physical, very basic ones that we can all relate to, rather than, let's say, something more personal in your life that's more unique to you. So he like makes something like the common denominator between people. But like this verse, just my reflections on it, and I'd love to hear also your reflections. When I was thinking about it, I was thinking, when someone comes and asks, when someone asks me for something, or what is a payment, here it's saying ask for a reward. Another translation is ask of them a payment. It's a payment or reward. It's like something that I will give to someone. If someone is asking me for a payment, or someone's asking from me a reward, it means that I will be losing something. It means that I have to give something that I own to someone else. There will be this transfer of ownership, and it's not just a transfer of ownership. It's a transfer that's, at least in the short term, it's not in my interest. Like I lose something, potentially. Even if you invest, like even if like at the end, in the long term, it's going to be beneficial for you. In the short term, you're still losing something. You can invest in, something very physical like a house, let's say. Even if in the long term it's going to be helpful for you, in the short term you are losing money. Someone else could be like, come and say, definitely you're going to gain money in the future. It's a very sound investment. Just give me the money and then I'll buy this house for you. But in the short term, you're losing that money. And that's what I imagine to be a payment or reward. Even if you're paying someone to do a service, let's say like mow your lawn, you gain something off of it, but you're also losing. There is still a transaction there. There's a transaction there where one side loses, one side gains. And here the verse is saying, do you ask for a reward? Are you asking for a transaction? That's how I'm understanding it. Is, are you asking from them? Are you asking them to lose something or to give you something transactional, and then so that they are burdened with a load of debt? And here it's saying like something like a transaction would burden them. It'd be like a debt, like what a debt would be. It'd be something burdensome on you that's in the back of your mind. It's weighing you down. A debt is not something you feel ease. There's not ease in a debt. It's not peace. A very physical like example of this is you get into debt for something basic, like let's say college debt or a car debt. You get into some type of debt, and there's a service or there's something you gain, let's say a car, you gain education, home, you can get a home, but you're in debt, and that debt, it adds a level of unease to it. It's not just freeing, it's not light. So even if there is some gain, there is a loss, there's a transaction happening there. So what I'm understanding from this verse is the prophet asking for a transactional thing from you? Is that what you see it as? Or let me take it very personal to myself. My creator is challenging me with a question, asking me right now, am I asking, or is a transaction being expected out of me? Am I being asked to give something to gain his reward? Do I have to sacrifice something for him? This is a question I'm being asked. Is there a debt that's being placed on top of me? Like, is it such a bad thing? So yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's a question that's being asked, and it requires a lot of reflection and thinking to maybe in your life. But for like one example, I'm sure. Actually, I'll leave it to you. Do any of you have a comment to make about this verse and this idea of a transaction? Do you feel that there's a transactional type of relationship being asked of you in this creation? Yes, Brother Yusuf, go ahead.
Actually, a while ago, I was talking to an old friend of mine, and he's a friend of mine since secondary school. And we have been together with him during those discussions. But of course, there are multiple groups having several discussions in Turkey. So he was, and I was asking him, since it had been a while since we hadn't talked to him, I was asking him, are you attending any of the discussions or anything of this sort? And definitely there are a lot of groups which are asking for donation when they do discussions. So his response was, well, it's all about their money for them, referring to especially a specific group. He says, I was fed up with it. So they were not making, they were as if using religion as an excuse to rip off you from your money, which might be true also time to time. Like there are a lot of people which are abusing that, I would say. So in a sense, it sounds like a legitimate concern as well. Like this person is asking for 1/40 of my wealth or 1/10 of my wealth. But for what? Because are you coming out with this message which seems to be okay, the message might be reasonable, but at the end of the day, as if you are coming and taking my money away. So why shall I trust you? Maybe you are a liar. So from far, this might sound like a reasonable excuse. And I guess we should be smart about that too. I mean, not everybody who says God is really a godly person at the end of the day. And there are a lot which takes money just because they are saying God. But in here, Quran, like the author is, since Quran is in here mentioning that the addressee of this claim is the messenger, they are saying to the prophet that you are such a person, as if you are asking this money for yourself. So while that might be the case for some people out there, but for the messenger himself, and also the way zakat is established, is it really for the person of the messenger, or is it for the church as an institution, or in our case, I guess, masjid as an institution? Is zakat really being asked for that? Or the author is opening this part up. He's saying that is it burden to give to their own poor? So you are giving to your own poor people 1/40 of the property given to them by God Almighty. So it's not your property really. the giver of the property is asking for it. So it's that property is entrusted to you. It's not yours. And he's not asking for you to give all of them. He says 1/40 of it or 1/10 of it or a part of it. And as a consequence, both receive plenty. So this giving and taking, if you think about why am I giving? So just this very act of giving is to increase things in number. But what does that mean? Because with that act of giving, actually, I am going to start recognizing that this was being given to me. It's not something that belongs to me. It's not a static thing, but dynamically, my creator keeps providing me. This very observation itself, or this consciousness itself that I am constantly being provided, is the real wealth for a human being. Because otherwise I would think, well, I stocked money in the bank, so I am trying to preserve something. But once I start giving zakah in the name of zakah, saying that this is my creator asks me to give me, and also I start thinking what that really means. That means he was the one that has been providing me. So that was coming, that has been coming from an unending source. So then these consciousnesses being updated or refreshed in my understanding. So it puts me in a condition that now I'm not preserving a wealth. Actually, that wealth is being provided to me. So rather than becoming a police of my wealth now, I am becoming an observer of that wealth, saying that is not mine anyways. It is being given. So then I'm being thankful to the giver of it. So it's increasing in size, actually. If we think about it, it's becoming infinitely large. My wealth becomes infinitely large because I realize it doesn't belong to me. And where it comes from, it's endless resources exists there. So this is why when the author says, as a consequence, both receive plenty. And then he says, be saved from the envy and curses of the poor. It also has an outcome, a practical outcome for you. Poor people will not be envious of what is given to you, because now you are saying that this was given to me by my creator, and my creator wants me to give it to you. So also in the eyes of the poor, you are highlighting that this wealth is neither mine nor yours. We are both being provided by the same one. And here, now he is providing you, not me providing you, but your creator is providing you with my hands in this case. So it is such a beautiful way of reformulating the wealth distribution, not only in terms of income distribution among the society, but also our perception of wealth. It is changing totally. So such a thing really is way different than somebody trying to steal your money in the name of God or in the name of religion. So don't they see that this is how, as if the Quran is, since the very beginning, this questioning of M, all those verses were starting with M, saying, or is it, and in the form as if asking, how dare they ask such a nonsensical question? So I guess overall, this is what I see overall. And one more thing is that sometimes it might be that even for a messenger such as this, I don't want to accept him, and I am using this worry as an excuse. Because if I'm asking or introducing this question superficially, meaning that I very well know that this person is not asking for himself, or not for strengthening or getting larger in numbers, becoming a world power, or so on and so forth, but for making me meet with my creator, meaning wanting me to live in the presence of my creator, save me from my loneliness. Given that, I might be feeling like I don't want to be with my creator, because why? Because it's going to come with a burden to me. What sort of a burden? I feel like I'm going to lose my own control over my wealth, because I'm not able to say that it is my wealth. And if you think about it, especially if you are the first generation college student in your family, or somehow if you are the first person who has some more of a wealth from your parents, there's more of a feeling like it's possible, at least, that I gathered this with my own hands. So it gives me a status. It gives me, it makes me feel that I am good. I don't want to lose this feeling. And now you are coming in telling me that this does not belong to you. And in the name of your creator, in order to remind you of that very fact, you will give part of it away. So I don't want to admit this. I don't want to accept this. So what do? I drag my feet, which means I need to come up with excuses to say that you're a liar. And this is what is being done in here. And I guess overall, because these are for the last couple of weeks, we are studying the ways how messenger and messengerhood is being challenged. And one of them is here. I don't want to lose my status. I don't want to lose my wealth, because I love it, as the author says in here, being a worshiper of this world. I don't want to lose it. So I say, well, yeah, all the religions are there just to gather power, gather money, and then you know the rest of the story. But the author says, is that really the case? Isn't this a very unrealistic in this specific case? Yeah, maybe there are some people out there doing it like that, but now we are talking about that case of Quranic message and the prophetic application of it. Do you observe that as if it is being done for personal gain? Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. I think you perfectly touched every point that I had as well, and more. Just to summarize what I got from your comments, and hopefully give others time to also make their comments. I think firstly, we need to start with this foundation, you know, the true foundation that we actually don't own anything. We can't claim to own anything. So I can't actually give you anything. I can't actually relinquish anything of mine to you. Even the money I have, you know, I say I have that money, but how have I earned it? You know, I'm using the word earn, but how, like, what is earning it? You know, I sit down at a desk some hours a day, and then something happens, and then, you know, I get a paycheck or something. But then, first of all, even in that small interaction there, your input is so little. And then thinking in the bigger picture, you're on like this world, you're on the, you know, there's countries, you know, there's the water, there's the wind, gravity, all these other things that are functioning, that are being made to function around you, that are providing you this environment. You know, the family you were born in, the place you existing, these are not random things. So like, how much of what you claim to, let's say, have, do you actually have? Like, how much can be actually attributed to you? And, you know, nothing, basically, very close to nothing. You know, I'm saying very close to nothing because you hope to have something, but really, in the end of the day, it's, you can't attribute anything to yourself, especially when we look from the idea of causation and the fact that you don't have the power to think about something. You don't have the power to just bring a thought into your mind. You don't have the power to even raise your hand. So we have to start from this first step, this foundation that I can't, there's not a transaction that I can be a part of because I have nothing to give. I have nothing to give anyways. And then the next thing is interesting. I have nothing to give, but because, you know, because I might think I have something to give, then I am being placed under a debt. It's when I think that I have things that I own and that I need to keep hold of these things that I own, that's when I'm being placed in a burden of debt, because I now think that I need to gather and hoard my money so that I have a safe future. I have to hoard my money so that it doesn't get destroyed. I can provide for myself. I can provide for my family. Now you're in this idea of like, I must protect this wealth that you think you have. And this is a huge debt on you because you also don't really have the power to protect it. Let's say a natural disaster occurs, or anything could happen in every day. Nothing is guaranteed. So like you can't truly protect this wealth that you have. So there is a burden that is associated with this idea of ownership over the things that you have. It's a very ironic thing, actually, that you're trying to escape from burden, but you're jumping right into it because you are now trying to hoard and trying to claim ownership over things. And I think an important point that you also brought up was this idea that I am not meant, or it's not expected of me to be holding a debt. I'm not meant to be burdened. In fact, when the idea of a zakat is actually very beautiful. It's a very cleansing thing. You try to, we fall into this mindset of hoarding and trying to increase the number in our bank accounts or something. This is what we fight for. And then it becomes almost like an illness. And then when you give away in zakat, something that's not even yours to give, but you've been ordered to give. So you give zakat, and truly, this illness that is like breeding within you, it is like cleansed, it is purified, because you are acknowledging that you don't own this money that you have. You don't need to be falling into this burden of thinking that you need to amass a great wealth to provide for yourself. You're reminding yourself that it is not your responsibility to provide for yourself. It's your responsibility to live according to the order of things, but that your creator, your provider, your sustainer is the one that can only sustain you. So this giving of zakat, giving something you don't own, but then as you give it, you're also relinquished from this debt of trying to own it. And furthermore, you're also now made aware that you're an abd before your creator. He is your sustainer. You gain consciousness over this, and there's relief in there. There's pleasure in that consciousness that you gain. So there's a gaining. You are gaining something there. Which is all, right now when I'm looking at it, it's just all it's interesting, like how it's so easy to really dive into these feelings of I want what's best. You're trying to chase what's best in your own imagination, like pleasure or wealth. But then as you're chasing them, you're actually getting so far away from the truth. You're actually like digging yourself into a load of debt. It's also relevant to another verse that we will also be going through, which I'll give a foreshadowing. It reminded me of this verse here. Or did they intend to plot against you? But those who defy God are themselves involved in a plot. You're trying to plot, let's say, against others, but really you're just digging yourself into a hole. You're falling into your own trap. Yeah, thank you for those comments. They're very helpful. Aisha, I see you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum. Yeah, I just wanted to share some rudimentary thoughts on what this verse made me think of. So definitely in one respect, if I think of, like giving money to a poor person, and thinking that they should say thank you or like dignify me in some sense, then I'm putting a debt on them and claiming ownership over that money as though it was my property to give in the first place. So I think one could understand it in this way, and it definitely makes sense. And Nursi's little paragraph there about zakat also makes sense. But what I thought of when I first looked at this verse was also the ways in which, if I'm helping someone with my time, let's say I help them on a project or something, and I expect gratitude, it's as though I'm burdening them with the fact that I manifested certain qualities that I see as belonging to me. And I guess this is applicable in terms of any sort of quality that I may choose to reflect, right? So if I don't know, write a really great paper or say something really smart, and I expect someone to praise me in return or in response, there is a sense of ownership that I'm exhibiting or that I'm feeling towards that intelligence or intellect that I expect the other person to repay me with through compliments or something like that. The same could be said of, many different things, from generosity to doing something. So I guess this asking for a reward, and I know this was mentioned, asking for a reward is very much so related with the extent to which I claim ownership over any quality that I may be choosing to reflect in relation to someone else. So again, like if I make dinner for someone and expect them to say something nice, then in a sense, I'm burdening them with a load of debt because I'm claiming, um, I don't know, ownership over that meal. So I think there are a variety, and that puts not just a burden on their shoulders, but also a burden on my shoulders, because the moment I claim ownership over inequality, right? Whether it's being generous or smart or I don't know, useful in something, uh I'm also placing that burden upon myself because I think that it belongs to me, and so I have to continuate it. I have to make sure I'm able to continuously exhibit it. And that becomes a very extreme burden because I realize that I don't have ownership over it. I can't create it whenever I will it. Um, so that was just one way in which I understood this verse, and also going back to the point that you and Brother Yusuf made about these, just like how these verses are situated. I think they do really invite this sort of dialectical conversation. They're asking me to have a conversation with the text. When you ask a question, you're expecting a response. It's an invitation to engage, invitation to have a dialogue. Um, and I think that's really what also makes these verses really fruitful.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you for your comments. I'll see Brother Rikan has his hands up. Would you like to go ahead?
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan, everyone, for beautiful comments, all these discussions. So I was also, sorry, I like talking at the same time, trying to do my fatherhood. So I was thinking in the same line with what Aisha shared. So probably I wouldn't say something new. I apologize in advance. Maybe repeat the similar stuff, similar things. So with every interaction I have with my environment, with people around me, it is a kind of transaction, right? The way we live, especially in cultures like the current one that we live in, they are even formalized. There's a formal way of interacting with people. You do something nice and they thank in return. This is an expected behavior. If you do not thank, it is considered rude. Same way with your family. When your mother cooks you something nice, you are expected to show some respect like my daughter, for instance, currently showing a bald man in her book and calling it as Baba, father, which is out of respect. Like, this is not respectful. This is disrespectful. And I expect something better from my daughter. So anyway, with all these expectations, from one perspective, they make a perfect sense. That, like, we have to accept that it makes perfect sense. It fits to my human expectations. That when I receive something nice, I have this feeling of thanking. I feel thankful. And I need to express this thankfulness. If I do not say thank you to my, let's say, a friend who cooked me a very nice meal, I feel myself bad. I think that I did something disrespectful, and this is not just out of this is not just following some cultural norms or something. This is coming from inside, I believe. The same way, when I do something and the other party does not thank me or does not give me something in return, it's like smiling, very looking with a calm eyes and the happy face. I think there is something awkward in this situation, like there's something missing. So we can take the verses as saying that, don't ask anything in return. Just do your job, and that's it. If you need to cook it, if you need to do something good, if you need to make a favor, just make it. And do not ask anything in return. We can take it that way. But I guess there's a limit that we can take this verse in that way, which, like a limit of our human expectations. I might be wrong, I might be biased by the culture I was raised in, but it seems to me my human nature wouldn't be satisfied in a relationship in which my good doing goes wasted. I need to know that what I do is right. I need to know that I'm doing the right thing. And a thankful attitude, like someone being thankful to me, it's like a sign of this, the rightfulness. But instead, I think the verse, instead of saying that, oh, just leave your expectation, live without any expectations, you don't need any reward, you don't need any, what is the word? Recompense. You don't need it. I guess this is like telling me something I cannot accept easily, and I'm not sure this is right to say. Because I need to know that I'm doing something right, I'm on the right path. At the same time, like when I do something nice, when I give something to another person, there's this feeling in me which says, something nice being done. It has to be appreciated. So again, there is one option which says, like some ideologies, some philosophies claims, like disclaim everything. Do not, own anything. Just forget about your feelings. Disregard that the feeling in you which says, whatever has been done needs to be appreciated. Get rid of them. This is one option. Or I guess the another option would be, and this is, I think, what Quran suggests to us, that this feeling of appreciation need to be addressed properly. Instead of disregarded, need to be addressed properly. You are looking for a reward, which makes you only a human, not a greedy person. But if you ask for a reward from the people or from the object around you, then you become greedy. Why? Because their rewards will not be enough for you. You will ask thanks from your wife, from your mother, from your child, and what you receive will not be enough. You will ask for more. You will ask the same from other people as well, constantly, because they wouldn't satisfy your need. They wouldn't satisfy your need for reward, and you will become greedy. You will attack everywhere to be satisfied, and you will become greedy. Instead, author says here in his explanation, ask for reward, but from God. Ask for recompense, but from God. Even when we apply this to prophet, at least myself, I don't think prophet as someone without any feeling, without any need, without any, the idea of reward or recompense, just, wandering around like an empty soul. No, he was addressing these needs properly. He was asking from God. My need to be appreciated, it's there. I can try to get rid of it. I can, try to make ourselves miserable, but it will just make me miserable, nothing more. Instead, Quran says, ask from me and I will give you more. Like Quranic wisdom is trying to make you rich. God is trying to make me the richest person in the universe. And instead, what we try to do, following these false ideologies, trying to make us the poorest person. Oh, I don't need this. I cannot have it. No, you need it. But the people that you are asking for, they cannot give it to you. Ask it from the right person. Ask it from the right source. So the reward and recompense, it's there, but not from your father, not from your friend, but from God. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. Jazakumullah khair. That was a very, I enjoyed your comment very much. I see that we have some messages from Aisha. I'll read aloud and she can elaborate if she'd like. She says, I think the point you're making is really important, Brother Birkan, but it's also an issue I am struggling with in trying to see/find the balance. Since I cannot control another person's reactions, that looks to them, not me. Doesn't it mean I shouldn't simply focus on the reward being my own internal peace, knowing I acted in a way that didn't contradict my humanness? So doesn't mean neglecting that need. So this doesn't mean neglecting that need expectation, but redirecting it towards the relation I have from my creator. Yeah, I think, would you like to make a further comment on this, Aisha?
Yeah, I kind of wrote those comments live as Brother Bikram was talking, and I think he already answered them. So it was kind of just my stream of thought as he was talking, and I kind of see where he took the point to.
Yeah, I think you summarize it well as well. I think the comments though, just my own thoughts about it. I think it's a very important subject. As Brother Birkan was talking about it, it also made me think. The Quran is giving Quran is giving an idea of how relationships should be formed. Uh, as Brother Birkan was saying towards the end, instead of having expectations over reward or some type of recompense in your relationships, and expecting, like, let's say, your family members or these other friends that you have to live up to these expectations or to provide these rewards, which they will not be able to fulfill. You need to direct these feelings that you have. You need to direct them to your creator, to a source that can actually fulfill them. And another thing which Brother Rikon said, which truly resonates, and is how he says that when if we direct these expectations for a reward to objects, to things that are limited, and to things that are also like powerless like us. If I direct my uh, expectation for like my mother to be, let's say, even in this example, like uh, you expect mercy from your mother, and alhamdulillah, yes, mothers are great mirrors to mercy, but even in that, your expectation of mercy is so great that if your mother couldn't even your mother will disappoint you in this as well. Your wife will disappoint you, your daughter, child, your friends, everyone will disappoint you in this aspect, or other expectations you have, and it will be like it will cause a greed within you, and you will be attacking everything. Those were the actually the phrase Brother Brikan uses. You will start attacking things. You will become greedy and attack everywhere to be satisfied. It's very true. Because you will start reaching out with your own hand, trying to grab things to fulfill this expectation that you have, to fulfill this need that you have. You're going to start attacking things with your greed, which will only be harming you even further. It's not going to be helping you. And instead, the solution, the cure to this, the thing that will give you relief, is not trying to reach out and grab everything with your own hands in greed, but instead to redirect your expectation, redirect your needs to your creator. And physically, I have a question. Like, it brings up a question for me. Will this physically change things for me? Will I be living in a different way? Maybe not. Maybe the relationships will just continue the same way, but within me there will be a difference. Like what I expect, like the turmoil within me, because I cannot, this idea of there's like a contradiction between my needs and what people can provide. This contradiction puts me in a turmoil, but this turmoil will be relieved. This turmoil, I will find peace within it. I'll be able to find security. And before I give the mic to Farah, I also wanted to make a comment, because the Prophet ﷺ was brought up. How the Prophet ﷺ was asking from God, and it reminded me of one of the hadiths where I believe it was, so I don't know the details very well, but the spoils of war were not given to the Ansar or the people that were, you know, uh, at the side of the Prophet from the beginning, but they were instead given to a large portion of them were given to the people that were already well off and that were newer and that recently joined. And I remember that the people that had been with Islam from the beginning, or that had been more loyal and alongside the Prophet, they were at unease about this. They, because all the wealth is being given to the new people, and while like probably the new people are also more wealthy and better off. And the Prophet, I remember he responds in the sense that with them is their wealth, but with you is the God and His Messenger, something along those lines. And this verse, it's and these comments, it's making me think about that. And maybe we can expect like the material wealth of these people. Like if you are seeking wealth in the material wealth, then you will always be poor. You could be Jeff Bezos, you can be extremely rich, but if you seek wealth in the material aspect of things, you will always be poor because it cannot fulfill you. There will be things that will be eating you from within. But then it seems so ironic or even contradictory to see that how someone poor could be wealthy because they have God and His messenger. There's a peace that they can find within themselves, and the hereafter. The hereafter, both after you die, the hereafter in your own existence at the moment as well. It just made me reminded me of that, which I also wanted to also share that. Farah, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I joined a little late, but I hope I got. I'm going to talk to what I think was the gist of the conversation being discussion from today. Actually, reminded me of something from the same author that was very intriguing and interesting to read once. It was about. It was a little paragraph, I guess, about cats and dogs. So in more plain sense, it talked about how cats, according to this author, are considered to be more spiritual or closer to God than dogs are, and so hence sort of their the traditional Islamic sort of outlook towards them is I understood sort of the outlook towards them, and so from what I remember, the author had to say that because a cat, unlike a dog who's very loyal to his owner and comes back to you when you feed them, a cat realizes within its being that its sustenance or her sustenance comes from the divine creator, and that she's not relying on the man for her sustenance and existence. And so hence, a cat does not exhibit the same sort of loyalty, quote unquote loyalty to the human being, whereas a dog attaches his sustenance to a created being and is hence sort of considered of a lesser, you could say, station, maybe, in respect to the cat. So I thought that was very interesting way of also illustrating some of the points that were shared today.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. Yeah, I guess in some sense these animals are witnesses for us, or like examples for us. It's also interesting the way Nursi reads these the behaviors of these animals, and he comes to these conclusions. It shows like we can read these animals and make sense of them and find lessons to help us also. Yeah, thank you everyone for your comments. I think that was very beneficial for myself. Inshallah, if I will give 10 more seconds or like 5 more seconds for someone to make a comment if they like before I move on to the next verse. Let me actually finish reading because I didn't actually read the rest the second time at least. So, do they not know that you seek your wage and recompense from God alone? Is it a burden to give their own poor 1/40th of the property given to them by God Almighty, or a part of it, and as a consequence both receive plenty, and be saved from the envy and curses of the poor? Do they consider the command to give zakat burdensome and therefore hold back from Islam? Their denials have no importance, and what they deserve is a slap, but not an answer. Also, it's interesting here too to say that the command to give zakat burdensome and therefore hold back from Islam. We can also read Islam as submission, submitting yourself. To give zakat, you are submitting yourself to the fact that you don't own this property in the first place, and that you must obey the command of your creator and give away what he has commanded you to give away. there is a submission. So you are therefore holding back from Islam, the religion, and also the submission. So the next verse. Or is it that the unseen is in their hands and they write it down? So let's see this verse again in Arabic. Am indahumul ghaibu fahum yaktubun. Or have they the unseen so they write it down? So here the translation is different. You can see them. Or have they knowledge of the unseen so they write it down? And here it says, or is it the unseen is in their hands so they write it down? So they have, the verse is speaking of having unseen so they write it down. This verse was, I will need your help to understand this verse. I really didn't have too much thoughts about it when I read it and tried to understand it. But let me read what Nursi says, and then I'll open up the floor to all of you and hopefully your comments. So Nursi explains this verse, or part of one aspect of the verse he explains. Or like Buddhists who claim to be familiar with the unseen, or the pseudo-intellectuals who imagine their conjectures about its affairs to be certain. Does what you said about the unseen not appeal to them? That means they imagine that the world of the unseen, which is disclosed to no one apart from the divine messengers who receive revelation, and which no one has the ability to enter, is present and laid open before them, and that they obtain information from it and write it down. So here it's saying that Buddhists or these pseudo-intellectuals who think they have, who imagine things about the unseen, who imagine their conjectures about the unseen to even be certain. It's saying that it means that this thing called the world of the unseen, which Nursi is saying is not this close to anyone apart from divine messengers who receive revelation. And no one has the ability to enter this world of the unseen apart from these divine messengers. It's Nursi saying these Buddhists and pseudo-intellectuals believe that this unseen is present and laid open before them, and that they obtain information from it and write it down. Or, the question is asking, is the unseen open to them? The world of the unseen, does it open to them, and do they write it down? As I said, it's difficult for me to understand, so I'll just continue. So do not be disheartened by the lies of these arrogant braggarts who have overstepped their mark to an infinite degree. For in a short while, your truths will be completely overturned their imaginings. So I'm from the ending of this paragraph, what I'm understanding is that, they can't have opened the world of the unseen. They don't speak truth. They're just making things up. So don't be intimidated by them. Oh, I see Brother Brekan has his hand up, so please go ahead.
Selamun alaikum. You gave me the mic, right? I couldn't hear the last sentence.
Sorry. Yeah, I said go ahead, please.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. So this part is very interesting because when it comes to unbelief, disbelief, or denial, our usual suspects are the materialists, naturalists, whatever, the people will think, or moments of myself that I think being lost in this material world, worldly life, and not being able to see what is behind all these things. So this is my, let's say, stereotypical understanding of disbelief. That denying unseen, denying what is behind the things that I observe, trying to messages that things carry me. That's my stereotypical definition of disbelief, right? Or denial. But here, like in this verse, quite interesting, says, oh, do you think unseen is in your hand? So it's meaning like you are not denying unseen, seemingly. You think there's, a meaning behind all these things. You think you are going above what you observe. And this is kind of the definition of being an intellectual, right? Enlightenment comes through abstractions, going beyond what we observe, seeing what is behind the things. But then Quran says, yeah, you think, you take yourself as a familiar with the unseen. You think you are talking about the unseen. So you are kind of superior to those who are not interested in unseen. But you know what? If you do not see that unseen is out of your reach, it can be open to you only through the creator of this universe, only through the messengers, let's say the selected or assigned by the creator of this universe. If you are skipping this part, if you think you can, reach a kind of unseen through your intellect, through your spiritual connections, through purifying yourself, through doing X, Y, doesn't matter, but through a means other than the revelation. If revelation is not in the equation for you, and you claim that you have an access to unseen, then you just, not any different than those who deny unseen. With respect to, let's say, getting closer to truth, or with respect to your relationship with your creator. It might be true that in such moments, when I have a quote unquote a spiritual life, it is true I usually have a healthier body. I usually have a healthier mind, a healthier life in general. So there are some rewards if I'm doing something right? If I'm saying that this material world is not the only thing, there's something beyond that, even more important than this material world, I'm taking one step towards, let's say, the reality, and there's a reward for that I have a healthier body. That I refrain myself from the toxics of this life. But that's all. Without revelation, there's no solution for you. There is no escape from your miserable life. The misery will find you in another form, but it will find you. Just because you are talking about, meaning behind everything, your spiritual connections, your, opening new dimensions to your minds, it will not save you. Without revelation, you are lost. Without revelation, you are in darkness. That's what I understood. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I think, you could just summarize it with the last things you said. Without revelation, you are lost. without revelation, you are in darkness. I think now I understand this verse a bit more. I'm able to place it in my life a bit better. I'm thinking, how do I experience this question being asked to me? You know, for example, university talks about Buddhists or these pseudo-intellectuals, but I'm thinking, for what do I think that I know without revelation, or what do I think that is true? Like, I think it's true. Maybe I've just made it up in my imagination, but it hasn't been revealed to me. Like, maybe I believe that if God was merciful, then it would have happened this way. Such an example I could throw out. I am making a conclusion, or I am determining something about the unseen. I am trying to grab the unseen with my hand and write something down about it. If God was merciful, this wouldn't have happened that way. I make such a comment, and I see that this verse is now speaking to me, because I am now falling into this falsehood of making a comment about the unseen, let's say. I'm going the wrong direction, instead of, let's say, going from evidence, or basing my ideals, because when I make such a comment, if God were merciful, he wouldn't have done this. I am first creating up this image of a God, and then I am coming to a conclusion, rather than actually observing my surroundings and then coming to a conclusion of a God, and then saying that he is merciful. I am going the wrong way, and when I go the wrong way, I am putting the unseen in my hands, and I come to false conclusions. And this idea of revelation, revelation is things that, I guess, to some degree, revelation is, this brings up the topic of prophethood and how much revelation you need, and others can speak about that much better than I can. The necessity of the prophet. It's a very important and broad topic as well. But like, revelation is needed because you can't find things by yourself. You need a teacher to teach you. You can't just like go out there and just figure things out by yourself. And if you think that you can, then that's like arrogance, or as Nursi says very clearly, he says, these arrogant braggarts who have overstepped their mark to an infinite degree. Do not be disheartened by the lies of these arrogant braggarts, because it is arrogant for them to think that they could reach out and make it say something about the unseen that they don't have any knowledge about. Or as Brother Rikam was saying, these people that come out and say there is no God, they say very with great conviction. They say it very smugly and make fun of you or laugh. They make great use of words to explain how there is no need for a God, how things are just happening by themselves. And these verses, it's saying, do not be disheartened by these lies of these arrogant braggarts. First of all, these people who say there's no God, they deny the unseen.
May I, if you don't mind,
Please.
just interject that? It is very relevant to what you said. I think we can also apply this verse to the idea that there is a God. There is a God. And what do you mean there is a God? Oh, I mean the God is infinity. I mean the God is the secret power of this universe. The God is the completeness. I was listening at the philosopher saying things like this. The God is completeness. The God is perfection. There is a God which is inside us. There is a God, the traveling the universe as a form of love and will fill our hearts. I think this verse is also talking about that. Like the people or part of us talking about unseen, a God of completeness, unseen, that you can reach through abstractions, through using some the philosophical notions and arguments. And how did you come up with this idea of like a God of completeness, God of infinite love, or God who traveling, in the form of love, filling our hearts? How did you come up with this? Oh, I thought about it. I look at the universe and using my intellect, using my feelings, whatever, through some abstractions, I come up with this idea of God of infinity, God of completeness, God of something. Quran says, unless your understanding of God is not defined or is not given to you through revelation, you are misguided. Just I wanted to add this part. Sorry for interruption. Sorry.
No, thank you. Yeah, definitely. Both in believing God and not believing a God. I'm doing God in quotes because like you're just kind of just thinking, imagining something up, as you said, just as they imagine there is no God, or they make things up like that. Brother Yusuf, go ahead with your comment.
So another thing that sorry, I get disoriented a little bit, sorry. So when he says in the translation, they said it's pseudo-intellectuals. In the original text, the word he uses can be translated as somebody who sells or who shows off with intellect, or trying to show that I am smart. So the motivation of using intellect is to distinguish yourself by being smart. So I guess this can also apply to myself when I take Quran at my hand, but say that I'm going to take this text and come up with in my way, I'm going to understand what it says. Because Messenger himself was 14 centuries ago an illiterate man. Yeah, even if I say that God must talk to me, I might try to approach speech of God by disqualifying the messenger himself from the picture, as if I would like to come up with an understanding of revelation of my own without the aid of the first addressee of that revelation itself. As if I will say that, yeah, that messenger himself, and I'm talking about the historical man himself, as if I say, well, he was just a trustworthy person to which that was revealed, but he lived his own time. He was relevant for his own people at his own same era. But now, hear me, not really. I can make sense of it. I have better tools. I have all those new ways of thought. And so he is, yeah, the revelation, since it comes from God, it's timeless. But the interpretation of it back then, it's bound to time. So messenger is not that much relevant to me when it comes to unlocking the truth of the unseen. This is another version. In this case, apparently I am accepting the revelation as speech of God, but I am thinking as if the keys of the unseen is under my hands. Yeah, the revelation is in here, but now I can figure out everything. And then I start interpreting the existence through revelation, but without how the first addressee of this revelation is used to or was taught to interpret the existence. So in here, because the author is underlining that those with the sentence, that means they imagine that the world of the unseen, which is disclosed to no one apart from the divine messengers who receive revelation, and which no one has the ability to enter, is present and lay open before them. And then they obtain information from it and write it down. So I might be thinking that I am smart enough. Yeah, what I need is the meaning of this existence, which the creator sent down. Yeah, here is the revelation. I'm smart enough to figure it out how this explanation fits to the existence itself. So then I start making my own interpretation. So of course, when I say that, one can say, well, what do you mean by your own interpretation? Everybody is doing their own interpretation, sort of a thought might arise in this case. But the question is, am I supposed to, or can I really attempt to understand it by myself? Because in the first place, I was in need of speech of God. Otherwise, I was not able to make sense of the existence by myself, as the primary meaning of this verse highlights. How am I going to find the truth of this existence? And now, at the second layer of meaning, even if I say, yeah, there must be a speech of God that explains me the purpose of this existence, how am I going to unlock that message, as I have not been the first addressee of that speech? I was not. I am given that speech through another person. So it was not like this revelation was revealed to a mountaintop, but it was revealed to a specific person for a specific reason. So the keys to the meaning of this revelation should also be with that person. So if I'm disqualifying or belittling with whatever reason, sometimes it might sound like I haven't legitimate excuse to say, well, their narrations, they're very weak, a lot of problems with them, so there's no way we can reach to the messenger. Anyways, he was a good guy. But I mean, too many time has passed since then. So I'm going to do it by myself. This might sound like apparently a justifiable thing, but in reality, it might be, and most of the time it is, a tool for me to justify myself, in the sense that I want to write it down with my own hands. I don't want my creator to interfere with how I'm going to understand him. Because sitting in front of the messenger means I would like to learn, or I would like to understand my creator the way he wanted me to understand him, because he gave me free will, which means I can choose anyways. I am quite free in there, which means even if the revelation is in front of me, for whatever reason, easily I can deceive myself by just finding some excuses, as in this verse says, by maybe I'm trying to sell my intellect. I just want to be praised by others by saying, oh, what a smart guy. So in all these regards, even if when it comes to understanding the revelation, I might pretend as if I have the key to the unseen, and without the messenger helping me to understand the way the creator himself wished me to understand the revelation and the existence, I might try to start writing my own understanding of the revelation without the guidance of the messenger.
Jazakallah khairan for your comment. I think it's a very important topic. I saw Kareem, you raised your hand for a second. Would you still like to make your comment before we continue?
I mean, we are out of time, so I don't want to take anybody's.
No,
if
please
they're
go
busy.
ahead.
Okay.
We started
It was a quick thing that I noted when you were reading the text, and it's the sentence that it's the paragraph that starts with "or like two-faced dissemblers," but what I focused on was, or what attracted my attention was further in the middle. Don't think of these insidious charlatans as human beings. Don't be saddened at their wails and denials and lose heart. It's not that I took offense how it was phrased. It was an interesting thing that it caught my attention, and then I thought maybe someone would take offense to it. And But the way I resolved it, and maybe I wanted to bring it up because maybe the way I resolved that conflict, the hypothetical conflict, someone could have a better resolution, is that here we have to focus on not the people, humans as individuals that we are, that we share this, earth with, and we're from the same father, Adam, peace be upon him. It's more that we should think of their opinions and their words, their wrong opinions and wrong maybe foolery with their words as something that has veiled their humanity in that moment. And therefore, if you are in that position of debating them, refuting them, or if there was someone between you and this person that is looking for some answers, you should instead have a stronger resolve and think of them as an opinion, not as a human being, and increase your attention to the logical fallacies in their argument. That's the way I understood it, but that was the thing that I wanted to bring up, and thank you for listening to me.
Oh, thank you. I think that I agree with your sentiment about that sentence as well. When I read it, I think it doesn't mean don't respect, at the basic level, the fact that they're humans. It's just, as you said, their opinions, and just be careful about how you interpret them and the respect that you give them in that sense, their intellect and their ideas. Inshallah, so this verse, hopefully next week the moderator can go into that much deeper in the discussion. I think that also, if they like, they can also go into this paragraph if they feel we haven't covered everything. If no one else has a further comment to make, then I think we will close it. I'll give you 5 seconds. Thank you everyone for attending. I think it was a very beneficial discussion for me and very fruitful, alhamdulillah. See you next week, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم